Away we go. Greetings, junior scientists, scientists, and citizens of the great big world, wild and wonderful world in which we live. As always, I'm your humble science communicator at the Great Orbax, coming to you from the Department of Physics here at the University of Guelph. I'd like to welcome you to our September 2024 Stargazing Guide. It's September, and that means a return to school for many of you junior scientists out there. And while September days are filled with studies, September nights are full of wonder. This month, Saturn has its brightest night of the year. We scan the skies for an exploding star, witness a partial lunar eclipse, and welcome in the first day of autumn with the equinox. All this and more if you just take some time to look up. The summer triangle has been with us, well, all summer, and I want you to take one last look at it. Earlier this summer, the triangle would rise in the east, but now it appears almost directly overhead at sunset. Find the upper vertex and the brightest star of the triangle, Vega, in the constellation Lyra the Lyre. Now I want you to look due west and find one of the other brightest stars in the sky, Arcturus, appearing in the constellation of Bootes, the herdsman. If we draw a straight line between these two stars, you'll spot two constellations, Hercules, and the one we're interested in this month, Corona Borealis, the northern crown. Corona Borealis contains a special star, T Corona Borealis, or TCRB. TCRB is a binary star system comprised of a red giant and a white dwarf which is about to explode. The white dwarf is a star about the size of Earth with a mass equal to our sun's. This super dense star is drawing hydrogen from the red giant. The hydrogen accumulates on the white dwarf, and the buildup of pressure and heat eventually triggers an explosion called a nova, causing a huge burst of light and energy and eventually returning the star to its original luminance, where the whole cycle begins again. This nova occurs about every 80 years, and astronomers believe that we might be able to see it this month. When the nova occurs, the bursts of light should be visible in the night sky for at least a week. Good luck, junior scientists. As we enter into the autumn months, our gas giants Jupiter and Saturn return to our night skies, with Saturn visible in the southeast at sunset and Jupiter rising closer to midnight at the beginning of the month. As a matter of fact, Saturn's actually in opposition on September the 8th, which is just a fancy term for when the Earth lies directly between the Sun and Saturn. This means that Saturn will be at its brightest, fully illuminated by the sun and in the sky all night long. With a telescope, and potentially even just binoculars, you should be able to see the rings of Saturn. Good luck, junior scientists. The full moon this month occurs on September 17th and is yet another supermoon. We've talked about supermoons in the past. These occur when the moon is slightly closer to the Earth in its elliptical orbit, a point known as perigee. Here, it's 40,000 kilometers closer to us than at its furthest point, apogee, and therefore appears to be 30% brighter and 14% bigger. It's also our second of 4 consecutive supermoons this year. Now, during this month's full moon, we're also going to experience a partial lunar eclipse. A lunar eclipse occurs when the orbits of the sun, the moon, and the Earth align in such a way that the Earth's shadow is cast onto the moon. The Earth casts 2 shadows in this situation. The darkest one is the umbra, and when the moon falls entirely into this shadow, we get what's called a total lunar eclipse. The second shadow is known as the penumbra and is a lighter shadow that on a full supermoon like this one might go entirely unnoticed. Now, when I say this is a partial lunar eclipse, I mean it's really partial. Only 3.5% of the full moon will be covered by the umbra. But if you happen to be awake at 10:44 p.m. on the night of the 17th, take a look at the moon and see if you can see a tiny chunk taken out of the side of the supermoon. Unlike solar eclipses, lunar eclipses are totally safe to observe with the unaided eye. This month's full moon is the closest one to the autumnal equinox, and is typically referred to by settlers as the harvest moon. The Mi'kmaq refer to the September full moon as the mate-calling moon, Wigumgay-Wigus, as is the Cree Nation of central Canada, who refer to it as Namitahawipism, the rutting moon, when the bull moose scrapes the velvet from its antlers, signifying that mating will begin. Now, as I mentioned earlier, September 22nd is the first day of autumn, and here's why. We all remember the Earth is tilted at 23.5 degrees with respect to the line perpendicular to the plane of our orbit around the Sun. One Earth year corresponds to one full solar orbit. In December, we talked about the winter solstice, and in June, we talked about the summer solstice. The solstice occurs on the day when we are either closest to or furthest away from the Sun due to that tilt. These are the days when we experience the most daylight hours or the least daylight hours, the two extremes. Now, exactly halfway between the solstices, we experience a day with equal amounts of daylight and nighttime hours. This is known as the equinox. The autumnal equinox occurs on September 22nd and denotes the first day of autumn. After this point, our daylight hours will decrease until we reach the winter solstice. This phenomenon occurs again in 6 months from now, once we've passed 180 degrees through our orbit around the sun in the springtime, for the vernal equinox. What a month! So many things to see in our sky. And consider this, what we're able to observe is only the tiniest fraction of all the things that are actually occurring in this incredible universe that we find ourselves part of. It's all out there, just waiting for you to take some time and look up. See you next month, junior scientists, and don't forget to have a science-tastic day. Special thanks to Royal City Science's own planetary geochemist, Dr. Glynis Perrett, for her help preparing our stargazing guide. And the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada.